Hello, friends. Welcome to Josiah Venture Stories. Gwen Turner here to welcome you to this teaching episode of the podcast. We are excited to share the main talks from Spring Conference 2026, which was themed Divide and Conquer, Reclaiming Lost Ground when the Enemy Turns Allies into Adversaries. Every year, we focus on a theme that addresses current needs in youth ministry across Central and Eastern Europe. At Fall Conference, the topic was Victorious, with a focus on standing strong in the spiritual fight. Our Spring Conference took this theme even further, exploring a particular tactic the enemy uses in families, friendships, teams, and churches. We learned how to recognize, resist, and regain ground when facing these challenges, and now we invite you to do the same. We're not meant to fight each other. We're meant to fight together. How do allies become adversaries? In this episode entitled Anatomy of Divide and Conquer, Dave Patty shares how it's hard to think logically when we are hurt. Pain in one area of life will travel to others. Sometimes we cause the pain. Sometimes we are caught in it, and sometimes we watch it and don't know what to do. Listen as Dave unpacks the areas where civil war can occur, how to become aware of our battles, and ask the question, what would be the result if lost ground were reclaimed? Thank you for tuning in to this teaching episode of the podcast.
Oh, good morning. Why don't you pull out your Bibles, your notebooks, and again, you'll need pens this morning because we're going to do some exercises where you'll need to write things down. And just to get us back in context, yesterday we visited a really good garden in Genesis. That was just amazing. And we have good gardens too, where there's good people and good environments and good things to do. And then we come across this serpent, who's the craftiest, the most sinister creature in all of creation, but he works very subtly to frame things into mistrust and then to start a string of division and conflict. And one of the things we said his name, devil and Satan, is adversary and accuser, and I believe that as God made us in his image, Satan wants to remake us in his image into where we turn to adversaries and accusers of each other. And then we showed Captain America, Civil Wars, the Marvel conflict. And we saw all these good guys fighting each other, and then this weaker individual, Zemo, in the end, and you remember what he said? He says, I knew I couldn't defeat you. You're too strong for that. Many others have tried. But if I could get you to defeat each other, and I think that's a metaphor for the enemy, that he's working strong people who he can't defeat, but he wants us to defeat each other. So what we're doing is we're saying no. We're saying we're going to fight. We're going to take back that ground. And today we'll go a little bit deeper into trying to understand this, the anatomy of divide and conquer, so that we can better understand exactly what's going on. So here we go. How do allies become adversaries? Well, sometimes I cause it. Sometimes I am caught in it. I become an adversary to someone else. And sometimes I watch it and I don't know what to do. It's happening around me and I don't know what to do. And here's some places where civil wars, divide and conquer, occur. And you've probably experienced some of these, husband and wife. There's two people I've led to the Lord. I led the husband to the Lord, and I led then the wife to the Lord, and then I married them. I love both of these people so much. And not long ago, they said, Dave, we need some help. Can you come? We're having a little bit of conflict. And so I came to visit them at breakfast. And we had a delightful breakfast. They're delightful people. And then I asked the husband, I said, tell me about this conflict. And he started in to just describe his view of the situation. And his wife interrupted him and said, that's not right. And then her voice went up and she began to accuse him. And then he began to defend himself. And then, have you ever seen things like this where it just starts and it just begin to escalate, interrupting each other, saying, no, that's not true. I can't believe you said that. And then she said at one point, you just asked Dave to come in to make your argument stronger. And it's just going like this. And actually, I finally had to say, I was going like this, like time out. Stop, would you? Because I'm just watching this thing escalate and them destroy each other. I love these two people. I thought they loved each other. What's happening? And sometimes some of you experience moments in marriage where you go, I love this person. Why are we beating each other up? Why are we just slugging it out like this is my worst enemy? And then parents and a child, sometimes, have you ever gotten to adversarial relationships with your kids? Where, and this actually can happen sometimes even more with adult relationships, where people who've grown up in the same home all of a sudden become estranged from each other, and you go, what happened? Your blood, this parent raised this child forever, and why are you just fighting and not talking and never going to talk again? How does that happen? Family members or siblings. Have you ever watched your kids go into an adversarial relationship and they begin to beat each other up like Captain America and Iron Man? Teammates, some of you have had this on your teams where you watch good people just disintegrate into conflict with each other, or church members. Have any of you had a sending church or a church that's important to you kind of disintegrate into civil wars? Any of you had that? So there was one time not long ago, we visited one of our churches in the States. We'll call them Cornerstone, and just amazing people of God who love each other. And I realized when I landed there that I was landing in the middle of a civil war. So one of the founding elders got in conflict with the pastor, and there was a real issue that was dividing them, but the conflict soon began to escalate into lots of accusations, like you would think that the other person was the Antichrist. This pastor is total lack of integrity. He's lying. And it just went on like this. And then the pastor was saying, no, you aren't under authority. And this began to escalate, turn into two camps. And I watched good friends get sucked into these camps. And it was like, you didn't see this scene in Captain America, but it's like the fight at the airport where they're just destroying everything around them. It was so painful to watch. If any of you have watched those things, it's just so tough to be on the sideline with those. And I left and they got it resolved. You know how they got it resolved? One entire group left, right? That's the only way they got it resolved, was a group had to leave. And to this day, everyone who was a part of it is wounded. The wounds just kind of seem to last forever. Or a church staff, or leaders and followers get into civil wars with each other, or leaders and other leaders. I actually, several years ago, got into conflict with one of our board members who I deeply love. I'll call him Mark, but his name's not Mark, but we started, there were, in board meetings, he would say things that would just, I felt like there was accusations to me, and I would respond back in defense, and you'd get this board meeting where he and I were just kind of slugging it out with each other. So much so that I wondered, wow, is one of us going to have to leave? Because we're just not sorting this thing out. So I'm wondering where this is happening around you right now. So it helps to become aware of it. Where do you see divide and conquer happening in the last 1 to 2 years? And when I made my list, by the way, I went back about 3 years, I had 36 items on my list, okay? Either, and these are the categories, either you cause it, other have become adversaries to you. You're caught in it, you become an adversary to someone else, or you stand beside and watch it and go, oh no, I love these people, and I'm watching them just destroy each other. Now, to get some context, I want you to stop and reflect, and no one's going to see your sheet, hopefully, unless you got to keep it careful with the person beside you. But this is private information. I want you to do just a little bit of thinking about where you've experienced divide and conquer. Either someone's become an adversary to you, or you find out you've become an adversary to someone else, or you're watching people that should be together and allies, and they're fighting each other. So why don't we'll just take a little bit of time right now, and you can fill in that sheet. But I'd like to ask Mel to come up to the front. Why don't you come up and join me, Mel? And you all know Mel really well. And let me tell you a couple things about Mel. Mel is one of my best friends in the entire world. And I've served with Mel. We've been battle buddies for a lot of years. And not only are we battle buddies, but we enjoy being together so much that we vacation together. Our kids have raised together. We do hobbies together. When I've just got something on my mind, I call him up, just talk to him. Love to talk to Mel. Love doing anything with Mel. And Mel and I got in an adversarial relationship that lasted 4 or 5 years. Now, how can that happen with like best friends? And in fact, we didn't sort it out until this fall.
Yep.
So one of the things, we're going to kind of open up some really personal things because just so you know, hey, we're all in this together. And there's a lot of the ones on my list that I can't talk about. But I said, Mel, can we talk about ours? And he said yes. So we're going to, unpack a little bit more what was happening later on. We'll come back to it. And also, one of the things I want to tell you, though, well, and I'll say that a little bit. What was it like to be in an adversarial relationship? It was horrible. Do you want to just say anything about that?
I mean, it was horrible.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
And I think one of the harder parts was having the long history together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like there was any one thing that did it.
It was a slow boil.
Yeah. It was a slow boil. So it wasn't like one day you said something mean to me or I said something mean to you and that broke a relationship. It was a slow boil. Dave and I were talking yesterday, and the slow boil just really irritates me. How in the heck did we get caught in that?
Yeah.
But it was showing up in pretty much any time we get together.
It was, yeah. Which was really tough because we both were managing it because we love each other. But it was kind of like, all of a sudden the other person is a porcupine. You're kind of dancing around these issues. When am I going to get poked? Because sometime it would happen.
I wouldn't say when are we going to get poked. We knew we were going to get poked.
Yeah.
So we'd come in going, we know we're going to get poked. And I think because we knew we were called.
Yeah.
God hadn't called us away from it. And I still think we were trying to think the best of each other.
Yeah, I think we were.
And still getting poked every time we got in a meeting or anything.
Yeah. So we would regularly, if you saw that picture of Captain America and Iron Man and the two, that light between their shields, that would happen between us. We'd get in arguments and they would just kind of escalate. And then actually, one of the things that was really great was when Ben joined the E-team.
For us, not him.
Because this is what would regularly happen. Ben would kind of just watch us and go, what's going on between you guys? And we would get in this, something would escalate. We'd start arguing. We'd go back and forth. Neither of us were thinking clearly. And the only way we could get out of it is we'd always go, Ben, what do you think? By the way, Ben's really cool. He rarely gets triggered. And because we couldn't sort it out.
Yeah.
We would just have to say, Ben, what do you think?
Dave said something, when we were talking in the fall, Dave said something like, and I don't understand. I say something and Ben will say the same exact thing and you'll listen to him, but you don't listen to me. I'm like, I feel the exact same way. Like anytime I just go, I just said that. And you're like, oh yeah, that's great, Ben. But we both felt the exact same thing.
Thanks, Ben.
Poor guy.
But I guess, one of the things that then began to happen is that Mel was not a safe person for me. I actually felt under threat in his presence most of the time, which that really impacts you when someone that you're with and you really love feels unsafe to you. Like, I think he's against me. And even to the point where I went, I think Mel's actually trying to just push me out. Of JV. He just doesn't want me in JV anymore. He's actually working to maneuver me out. That's what I felt. Like he is actually absolutely opposed to me. He doesn't even really like who I am as a leader, and he would prefer if I was just gone. That's what I felt. So when you feel threatened like that, then you're constantly on guard with the other person because you go, he's going to take me down. I don't know what you felt.
I think what I felt was that I wasn't going anywhere because God didn't call me away. So that's like really strong in me. Like I'll buckle down really hard. And honestly, I thought Dave's never going to change. And so this is our life.
And I think I probably thought Mel's never going to change. And so this is our life. Now, some of you, you're going, oh, that was what was on because you saw that. Some of you go, that's a surprise to me. But someone said, you guys are like an old married couple. You're just fighting with each other. This can happen in relationships. Like people stay together because they've been together for a long time, but they just fight. They just fight with each other. And we were in that spot. And then there were some triggers that we just kept walking into. So there'd be times we'd be talking about something, and Mel would feel really strongly and make a statement that, maybe JV staff don't know how to disciple, something like that. And I would go, you're telling me that we and the entire team were a failure. And so I would say, Mel, you can't say that. Well, don't tell Mel he can't say something.
A little bit stronger, though.
No, it wasn't stronger. It was calm and collected. And this was just like bait. I mean, you don't tell Mel, and Mel, it doesn't matter what we were talking about. Well, Mel would just come back and we would just start fighting. Okay. Now we didn't curse.
Not out loud.
How'd this impact the good garden, Mel?
Really ugly.
Yeah. Yeah, we were both getting robbed in pretty significant ways. Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like because there's a commitment, kind of an honoring of what God called, which I think about the garden that way.
Yeah.
That no matter what, you stick it out, and I just became less and less joyful and passionate about what I was doing because I'm going to obey the Lord, but I guess this is the life that He has for me.
Yeah.
And because of our relationship and friendship and years together, serving, all that kind of stuff, it's not even bittersweet. It's horrible.
It's bitter.
It's just bitter.
Yeah. Now you can see it. Neither of us expected this.
No.
And you can see how dangerous this is for each of us and for all of you, right? This is not good for the entire movement, that at a key spot in leadership, the enemy has gotten in and turned allies into adversaries. Now, we would probably say, no, we're still allies. Kind of. I was thinking about this conversation. I'm really sad about this. So I feel really emotional. And it's because of how much I love Mel. And one of the things I just want to tell you, we'll get back to this, but we finally had the courage this fall to dig into it. And we had 3 very significant meetings. Now, let me tell you one other thing. Well, we got into the first meeting, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we did. And Mel was wise to just say, I need to pray about this. He didn't respond then. In our second meeting, he says, hey, Dave, it's not just you and I that are in conflict. You've really hurt my wife. And that's part of my problem, is that you and Amy are estranged. It's interesting how things spread, and then they kind of pile up, and sometimes then one person, it may be that I don't know what happened at home, but the thing is, whatever happened at home, I actually directly hurt Amy. And Mel told me about something I'd done that was really, really painful for Amy that I didn't even really know about. When he explained it, I went, oh, yeah, I guess I did. But our relationship was broken too. So you just see how that starts to spread. So our first meeting was kind of getting things out. Our second meeting was getting things cleaned. And our third, we pulled in Amy, and I'm going to pull her up in a minute. But let me tell you, in 3 times together, we were able to reclaim the lost ground.
Not kidding.
Not kidding. Okay. So in the space of about a month, it was gone. It was gone. So something that we'd been fighting about and wrestling with for 5 years and not making any progress on was just taken care of. And I've asked a couple times. I said, Mel, have we tangled since then? I can't remember one time we've tangled since November. Not one. And we would tangle just about every time that we talked.
I mean, we're dealing with topics that are tangible.
Definitely.
Whatever word that is, right? But I'm shocked. And it's not that we're both kicked back going, I don't care. It's not that at all. We both deeply care and are engaged. But there's no distortion screwing stuff up.
And we're being really honest with each other, but we're allies.
Yep.
And that makes a big difference. And I feel safe with Mel and with Amy. And so I'm not under threat, and they aren't either. And all of a sudden you go, wow, that is like a massive difference. Like massive. And here's what I'd say. On the backside of that, I couldn't even picture that would be possible. On the side before. Yeah. The front side of that, not the back side of it. Yeah. Oh. No way. Okay. We're going to come back to this, but we'll unpack that a little bit. But here's one thing. It can get really bad, and God has ways of fixing things. So why don't you go down? We're going to jump into God's word right now, and then I'll come back, try to get a better understanding of the anatomy of the adversary trap, which is something we're talking about here. How does it actually work? And here's some key elements of the adversary trap. So here's a picture of the adversary trap. One of the things that Mel was saying is you get cooked in it. I mean, we were so upside down, and there's so many factors that are working all at once that you just get lost. So I want to kind of describe some of the different things that come into play, and they come into play all at once. First of all, you can see that there's pain and wounds in all of us. So we're people. We get wounded. Some of the wounds happen actually in that relationship, and some of the wounds you run into other wounds. But there are several elements that we'll talk about. One of them is that there's this snake in the garden that sometimes we miss. We could say, what's wrong with Mel? He could say, what's wrong with me? Actually, we have an adversary who's trying to make us adversaries of each other. And 1 Peter 5:8 says, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. In Revelation 12:10, it says, now the salvation and power and kingdom of our God and the authority of Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down. So the enemy's accusing him. He's accusing me. He's actually trying to devour both of us in this situation. And then he's a liar. So he can be spreading false information. He was a murderer from the beginning. He does not stand with the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character because he's a liar and the father of lies. And then there are divisive spirits. This is really interesting because in Proverbs 16:28 it says, a dishonest man spreads strife and a whisperer separates close friends. Well, there are whisperers that separate close friends. And then in Samuel, you'll find that a harmful spirit came on Saul, and the result was he's throwing a spear at David, who David is the one who helps him when harmful spirits come on him. David is the one who's actually saved him for a bunch of his battles, and the harmful spirit causes him to see David as an adversary rather than as an ally. And so I think there's a lot more going on in the background. And in 1 Kings 22:23, it says, now Behold, therefore, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets. And so we need to understand that and his first bait is this mistrust framing that we find in Genesis. So back to our diagram, this is going on in the background, and we need to recognize that. And sometimes Satan will do things where you'll hear from someone else something that's actually coming from him, but he loves to bait this entire picture. And then actually, I already talked about this, but pain and wounds. In Zechariah 13:6, this is, if you can find Zechariah quickly, this is actually a really interesting verse. It's at the end of the Old Testament. It's there. Zechariah 13:6, and if someone asks me, what are these wounds on your back? He will say, these wounds I received in the house of my friends. Okay. We get a lot of wounds in the house of our friends, and sometimes the wounds pile up and they influence us and distort us. Hurt people, and we're always more sensitive in areas of pain. It's hard to think logically when you're hurt. You lash out. You try to hurt others. And pain travels. Have you ever noticed how when you're sick, you get mad at people more quickly? Or if you've had one bad conversation, it's easy to lash out at someone else. Pain doesn't stay in the same place. Pain in one area of our lives will travel to other areas. And actually, some of what we experienced started during COVID, where there's just lots of pain and disruption in the overall environment, and then it moves. Overall pain can move, and I can think you're the source of my pain, and it can be coming from somewhere else. Sometimes when my wife has a migraine, I have to remind myself she's not mad at me. She's just in pain, because pain distorts the way that we relate to other people. And then there are hurt people. There are instinctive, offensive weapons. And what we're saying about this is there things that you just naturally do, you do without thinking, and that are part of the factors that escalate all these situations. And you'll do them without thinking about them. And we're going to look at two passages this morning. One where we observe the instinctive offensive weapons, and then there are instinctive defensive weapons that happen inside of us. And the first is a story in Joshua 22. So turn to Joshua. And this is at the end of their conquest, where they've taken the land, and they've fought all these external enemies and been successful at it. And the whole nation of Israel is unified and together. And then they settle down. And when they settle down, there's kind of a division between them. It's the Jordan River. And then you have the western tribes on the side of the Jordan, which they have Jerusalem and the temple, and the eastern tribes. So now we have this group that's been together that has this geographical division that comes in. And if we pick it up in verse 10, when they came to the region of Jordan, that is the land of Canaan, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh built there an altar by the Jordan. So the three eastern tribes built an altar of imposing size. And the people of Israel heard about it and said, behold, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh have built an altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan in the region about the Jordan on the side that belongs to the people of Israel. And when the people of Israel heard about it, the whole assembly of the people of Israel gathered at Shiloh to make war against him. And here's this first thing, self-protection. Now, you might say, well, how is war self-protection? This sounds like aggression. But often what's experienced by the other side as aggression is sourced in self-protection. They're saying, oh, what you're doing is going to threaten our entire identity as a nation of Israel. Or what you're doing is actually going to cause God to be angry with all of us. And in protection, we will launch aggression against you. And we're going to attack you, and we're going to make war. You're threatening our altar identity. If you allow this, God will punish us. And so, you heard about as I start to feel threatened by Mel, there's all kinds of things I do in self-protection that actually can feel like aggression to him. He talked about my tone of voice, which was perfect, I'm sure. I don't know why he was reading that into it. But part of it is what I am experiencing as self-protection, he's experiencing as aggression. So we're going to war. Why? Well, it's natural. We've got to protect our land. No, you're going to war against your brothers. And so there's this self-protection that actually can be experienced by the other side as aggression. And then what you'll see that the whole assembly of the people of Israel gathered at Shiloh to make war against each other. And here's the other thing you find is gossip and slander. There were probably only a few people in the beginning that found out about this information. How does the whole nation know? Well, the whole nation knows because they've been all talking about it. Because all of them came together and they're all talking about it, and no one has talked to the eastern tribes. It's interesting. All the talk that's going on, that's not with the other person, but so, hey, did you hear about this? Oh, we tend, when we're feeling conflict, to voice it, and this is some of that camp recruiting that we talked about, but we tend to talk about it with other people. We gossip, we slander, and then pretty soon they gather with us for that war. Brad is untrustworthy, and I've talked to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and they all agree with me. Well, have you talked to Brad? So one of the things I found at that Crossroads church I'm talking about is there was so much conversation within the camps and so little between the camps. One whole group would get together, kind of the ringleader, the key elder, would invite people over his house, and they would talk way into the night about the situation, all dissecting it. And the other side would meet, and they would talk about it for a long time. And both sides would come out with a very unified perspective about their enemy as they're talking with each other. Then here's something else you find. You find judgment. So look at 22:16 through 18 as we're going a little bit further. It says, the people of Israel sent to the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, the half-tribe of Manasseh, Eleazar the priest, and they came to the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and they said to them, now they're starting to talk, but look what they're saying. Thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, what is this breach of faith that you've committed against the God of Israel in turning away this day from following the Lord by building from yourselves an altar this day in rebellion against the Lord? Have you not had enough of the sin of Peor, from which yet we have not cleansed ourselves, and from which there came a plague upon the congregation of the Lord? Now, what do they know? They know one thing. They know an altar is being built. But they are convinced of a number of other things. They're convinced of a breach of faith, of turning away from following the Lord, and building an altar in rebellion against the Lord. They're convinced of all those things. But there's only one thing they know. There's an altar being built. And here's the next thing that happens is judgment. Often in judgment, we have one piece of information, we're missing others, and we fill them in based on a pattern that's in our mind. So for instance, what if I said, Mary had a little what? Whose what? Was white as snow, right? Oh, that's obvious. But actually, what if Mary just had a baby girl whose skin is just white as snow? Well, you see, because you don't know. All you know is that there's a blank, and you tend to fill in based on patterns that are already in your mind. Well, there'd been a pattern of rebellion in the past. They said it matches that pattern. They know one piece of information, that there's an altar, and they fill in the rest with absolute confidence that that's the rhyme. That's the rhyme. So as Mel and I are trying to make sense of this, I know that he's being very defensive. And I can say, well, that's just because Mel doesn't want any of my input. He just thinks I can fill in, Mary had a little, and then I fill in based on a lot of things and then move with confidence that the entire sentence makes sense, and even though it might not. And then here's the next one, accusation. And basically they go forward and they say, have you not had enough of the sin of Peor, from which even yet we have not cleansed ourselves, and for which came a plague upon the congregation of the Lord, that you must turn away this day from following the Lord? And if you too rebel against the Lord today, then tomorrow he will be angry with the whole congregation of Israel. But now, if the land of your possession is unclean, pass over into the Lord's land where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and take for yourselves a possession among us. Now, here they are. They already have an answer to this problem. All of you need to move across the Jordan. And you just see how far this is escalating. Like we have this judgment that we're clear about, and then this accusation that you are being rebellious, and then the only answer is, you've got to come over to our side. because there's two sides of this. Your side is bad. Our side is good. By the way, if you would come over to our side, so that civil war that was in the Crossroads Church, each side went, if that other side would come to our side, things would be solved. But you can't be on the other side of this issue, and we'd be allies with each other. So this is so dangerous. It's really interesting to see how those three eastern tribes respond, because they could have escalated it. They could have said, well, how come you gave us the bad land on the other side? We have to do something for ourselves. It could have very easily escalated this situation. And their response is just absolutely fabulous, the way they de-escalate it. Then the people of Reuben, the people of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh said in answer to the heads of the families of Israel, God the Lord, the mighty one, God the Lord, he knows, and let Israel itself know. If it was in rebellion or in breach of faith against the Lord, do not spare us today for building an altar to turn away from following the Lord. Or if we did so to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or peace offerings on it, may the Lord himself take vengeance. This is so crazy, because what they say, if what you're saying is true, yes, kill us. If what you're saying is true, yes, you can be angry with us. So it's really interesting. They actually step over to the other side and empathize with their view, and then they correct it. But they corrected it by reaching out and saying, no, we're together. We're allies. We're in this together. And he says, no, we did it from fear that a time to come, your children might say to our children, what have you done to the Lord, the God of Israel? For the Lord made Jordan a boundary between us and you, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad. And then they basically said, we did this to stay together, not to break apart. And what happens in the end, he says, that's not our motives. And then in 30, Phinehas, the priest and the chiefs of the congregation heard the words that the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the people of Manasseh spoke. It was good in their eyes, and they went, oh, no problem. And they went home. Now, can you imagine if this hadn't gotten worked out? We could have 12 tribes killing 2 tribes and a half because of a misunderstanding. Just love the way they de-escalated it. But you do see these 4: self-protection, gossip, and slander, judgment, and accusation. Now let's move to another story. So there we see them. And we also see that typically they trigger the same on the other side. So when I get self-protected, Mel's going to get self-protected. If I accuse him, he's likely to accuse me. If I judge, it fosters judgment on his side. And the only reason they got out of that is that they didn't let it trigger the same response on the other side. So you get this happening back and forth. It's escalating. But you also see in another story our instinctive defensive weapons. Look at 1 Kings chapter 19. We get a picture of what's going on inside of someone else who actually is moving towards division as well. And this is Elijah. And we pick up Elijah's story after his victory on Mount Carmel in chapter 19. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he killed all the prophets with a sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. Then he was afraid, and he rose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs in Judah, and he left his servant there. Here's the first thing you find is you find there's a threat trigger. Now, this is so crazy because Elijah is the one who has stood up against all these same people. For years, he's faced off all the prophets of Baal, and he stood firm, and then all of a sudden you see him controlled by fear. And you go, what just happened? And sometimes we don't know what happens, but our brains are interesting in the way they're constructed because we have our frontal cortex where we think logically. And then somewhere right on our brainstem, we have something called our amygdala. And it's a part of our brain that has one particular responsibility, and that's to preserve our life. It's the part that, and it will interrupt other. Have you ever had something thrown at you and you respond just instinctively before you think? The amygdala interrupts the brain flow if it sees that there's a threat. And then amygdala just sits there all the time and it kind of scans the horizon and it's building pictures of threats based on your experience. And if something triggers one of those pictures, it will actually take over and force you into self-protective behavior without you even thinking about it. Well, you get something called an amygdala hijack. By the way, at the end of your book, you have something and all of us have them. All of us have spots where we respond with amygdala hijack. And when when I say to Mel, you can't say that, we're done talking. Because Mel's just going to fight me like his life depends on it. And if Mel says to me, Dave, you're being irresponsible, even if he doesn't say those words, he triggers my amygdala because irresponsible for me is death. Now, why is that? I don't actually know why that is. Sometimes we don't know. Why is Elijah running right now? It's not logical, but all of us have spots where if you kick that amygdala, the conversation is over. It just goes. And you're fighting for your life and you don't know why. If you're on the other side of one of these, it's really important that you de-escalate because the more you push, the more it'll just go. And you find Elijah in the middle of an amygdala hijack. He's not behaving like he normally does, and he's controlled by fear. So if you're ever in a conversation and things escalate and people talk louder and louder and they interrupt and they don't listen and they stop thinking straight, you're in the middle of an amygdala hijack. What happens is that part of your brain is going threat, 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 self-protection, and it will interrupt everything to save your life and just run you up to the top. So someone said, if your response doesn't match the situation, it's not about that situation. It's somehow it got a pattern and ran it up. So now you see him. The next thing you see withdrawal. So he withdraws from the situation, but then he even withdraws from his servant. Okay, if he's under threat, don't you want people with you if someone's chasing you? Someone else to protect you, maybe to watch over you? But he actually leaves his servant behind and goes off all alone. And this is the person who's run towards every battle, and now he's just running away. And there's this withdrawal that happens, that we withdraw from situations. We pull back. And then we find he went a day's journey into the wilderness, sat down beside a broom tree. Then, we're actually getting one. Yeah, we get into this one. Avoidance. So he's got this issue. He says, I'm all alone. No one is helping me. But also he's avoiding Jezebel. He's avoiding the problem. He's avoiding solving it. He's just avoiding everything right now. Let me just hide under a broom tree. By the way, you have these a little bit different order in your notes. And then you have this self-punishment. He says he went a day's journey into the wilderness, came and sat down under a broom tree, and he asked how that he might die, saying, it's enough, Lord. Now take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. And so you get this self-punishment. So sometimes we think back to avoidance, if we avoid a conversation, it'll just go away. If we avoid the engagement, avoid the people, avoid the problem, we say time will heal, but time usually just hardens. And also, we need to notice the mistrust frame that we see in 19:10, because when he actually begins to voice his complaint in verse 19:10, he says, I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. Do you notice he's saying, I don't trust anyone. I don't trust Jezebel. I don't trust Ahab. But I don't even trust anyone in Israel because I'm totally alone. And then there's this even sense that I don't trust God because you gave me this assignment and it's not working. And you have this mistrust frame that is really controlling his behavior. And then we see that there's also this issue of escalation that happens normally. And the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, okay? And so, Melanie, why don't you come back up here? Now, we kind of gone through all those quickly because I just want you to know of all the different dynamics that are going on. But I wonder, so we talked about threat triggers. We talked about avoidance, withdrawal, judgment, self-protection. Talked about a lot of things. Where were we experiencing those things in our relationship? I wonder if any of you I can give some examples, but you give examples of any of those pieces.
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm not sinless in this for sure. But I think what I started to do with you is withhold relationship. When I felt hurt, instead of leaning in and trying to repair, I pulled back. And then the more distance that was created between us, the more distortion there was.
Yeah, that's right.
And the more, and then where it went for me, well, maybe I should stop there.
No, you can go. You can keep going.
Great.
Keep going.
Then where it went for me, you guys, I'm so sad that I did this and that I participated in this. I'm sad that I did this even for you. But what I did was I reached for justification or validation, justification of what I was doing with you or validation of my feelings toward you. I tried to reach for that from the wrong places instead of from the Lord, where that's the only place I could get it. And I did some of that, what did you call it?
Camp recruiting.
Camp recruiting. Yeah, I even said it to Dave this morning. The Lord convicted me again last night and I hadn't said that to him, and I needed to ask for forgiveness for that, because in doing that, it made me feel better for a little bit. But what it did was it cast a shadow on my brother. I'm really sorry for that.
Totally fine. I would rather talk about things that I did wrong, but so I had some spots where I was just really insensitive to Amy and in the words that I said and how I treated her, and was not compassionate about that. And also anyways, I could tell a lot of things I did wrong. So thank you for saying that. But Mel, do you have anything else to say?
I think for me, for sure there was judgment. There was definitely self-protection. And in there, I would say most of what I did, I don't know if I would say it mixed between withdrawal and avoidance.
Yeah.
So if we didn't have to be together, fine.
Yeah.
Versus I was just trying to run away or not engage at all. But I would say because of the distortion, so the example of saying, you can't say that about everything, and I just go, well, then I actually can't talk, and actually you don't want to hear anything from me, right? And I just start walking down that road, which then it's easier to judge other things by.
Yeah,
and it kind of puts a marker in the ground that you're judging from, and it's the wrong place to judge things from. So then it's all distorted. It's all wonky.
Yeah.
And self-protection. Like I said before with the porcupine thing, we knew we were going to get stuck. So you had to gear up going in.
Yeah.
Which probably lit it up more.
Yeah. And I think both of us were avoiding it. I remember talking with someone about the same, you really got to work this out. And I would go, yeah, we probably should. Sometime when I feel safer than I do right now. Because actually opening it up and talking about it felt even more dangerous.
This isn't, like when I say this, it's, I didn't think it would go anywhere.
Yeah.
When I look back, I think, well, that's a horrible thing to think. Because basically what I'm saying is I just think Dave's stuck being that way. And, well, I mean, I was praying. Amy said God couldn't do anything. I was praying, but we had run into our issues so much, and it was going the same way every time. I go, this is it. Like, this is the way it's going to be. And that's what you've said to me too. Like, that's not great.
So, and actually what's interesting was the first conversation we had, I kind of rigged it because I said, Mel, I just want to do some evaluation with the E-team, and I have 3 questions I want to ask you. Could we get together? That was my excuse for meeting, because I didn't want to say, Mel, I want to talk about our relationship, because that's how scared I was for that conversation. I just thought it's just going to blow up. And so we did that, and then, well, we're going to get to some things we did later on. Here's the thing. We're going to talk about what do you do about this. And I want to tell you again that within a month, it was resolved. We did some work on our own, but the conversations were 3 conversations that were about 2 to 3 hours apiece, and it was taken care of. Okay, why didn't we do that sooner, right? But those were hard conversations, and we had to do some things that we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I want to push pause right now. You might go, you're going too slow. Is it tension? It's important for us to kind of open our eyes, because part of it is we actually were just not aware of what we were doing, and look at how these things are happening. So tomorrow I'm going to tell you more about what we did about it. We did take care of it. So you don't have to be afraid. But here's what I want you to do. You've got some questions. You guys can go ahead and sit down. Thank you so much for your give them a hand. So what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to think about, one, in order to unmask the adversary trap in a specific way. So here's how all these things fit together again. We've got the internal, what's going on. Here we go back here. The external, the internal, and then it just causes the same on the other side, and you get this escalation. You've got the enemy involved in there. I want you to think about one of those specific conflicts, and I want you to describe what's happening in greater depth. What's the mistrust frame? Describe the hurt and pain. You can see that in there. Where do you see instinctive offensive weapons at work? Where do you see instinctive defensive weapons at work? How is this escalating or hardening? What is the design of the enemy? What will happen if this is not resolved? So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to reflect on that. So go. We'll get some music going. Again, no one's going to see your sheet. This is just for yourself. You may need some more time, and you can finish tonight or other times, but tomorrow we're going to say, what do we do about that? How do we take back that lost ground? But I want to repeat something I said last night. I think, first of all, we've got to get a little angry and get a little mad and say, I'm going to fight. Like, no way. I'm not going to let Satan do this to me. We're going to say together a corporate no. No, serpent, you will not hide. No, you will not succeed. No, you will not steal what is precious from me. And no, you will not work unopposed. And we want to say yes. Yes, we see you. Yes, we belong to the victorious one. Yes, we will fight. And yes, we will steal back what you've stolen from us. Let me pray. Father, I pray for the skills to take back ground when the enemy has taken ground from us, and to win in these fights where he tries to turn good people against each other and promote division. So help us handle the emotion of walking into this. Keep our eyes on you, the victorious one, and learn how to fight with the weapons you've provided. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for listening to Josiah Venture Stories. For more information about who we are and our vision and mission, visit us at josiahventure.com and follow us on social media. If you have any questions about this episode or would like to get in touch with our guest, please email social@josiahventure.com. To help more people hear about this podcast, please leave us an honest written review or share this episode on your social media. Thank you, friends, and have a blessed day.